So hello and welcome back to Exploring Azeroth with Beryl. And it's just going to be Beryl today because Onyx had most of last episode. So you know what? It's only fair to let Beryl have her turn. And today we are going to be going through Zul'Drak. It is an area in eastern Northrend, which is home to the Drakai ice trolls and the Winterfang tribe of trolls. Their capital is the city of Gundrak, which is the dungeon in the zone, which I've spent probably not enough time in, but hey, you know, you can't always spend all your time in dungeons. And it's accessed. You can access it from Storm Peaks, you can access it from the Grizzly Hills, or you can access it from Crystal Song Forest. So you've got 3 ways of entering. And what's really interesting here is it's got so much interesting, like, I was gonna say lore, but it's just interesting little tidbits. It's not actually my favorite zone to quest in, although it does have one of my 2 favorite quest chains in it. And those quest chains are brought about because the Drakai actually have recently gone just a little bit mad because they sacrificed their Loa in an attempt to fight off the Scourge, and they're losing. The Argent Dawn is also here. They're trying to fight the Scourge, as are the Ebon Blade. I mean, you've got everybody here just fighting what seems like a losing battle. Now, I'm not too sure about the lore of this dude. All I know is he is ginormous. This is Thrym. He is an elite. I think you have to fight him with that giant that was back in the cage there. But oh my gosh, if you ever wanted to feel what an ant feels like, just stand in his path. He'll step on you. It's kind of intimidating because you don't realize just how big things are till you come up against old Thrym the Hope Ender there. He's a little bit on the big side. And I'm not too sure about his lore. I looked it up a little bit, but there's not a lot on him. I mean, he's obviously scourged, which is not all that surprising. And this seems to be where he was ended, here in Thrym's End. There's a very sad quest chain that's up here where you have to try to rescue some crusaders, and one of them is no longer around. But it does lead you to trying to put some things together as you're trying to gather the bits and pieces to put together an engineer's mechanicals, I guess, so that they can continue their fight against the Scourge. Off in the distance, we see Crystal Song Forest. That is a pretty area, and that's another one that I don't do a lot of questing in. I mean, you go to Crystal Song, and pretty much the only thing I can think of there is Dal'Rok, which is floating up above it. But there's a lot more there. Also, a really interesting thing, you've got the Reliquaries that are floating up above Zul'Drak. But I never really realized before, or maybe I did realize, but it's been a while since I really did a deep dive into Zul'Drak, that one of them is completely empty. So if you're looking for a good place and, you know, you want a mad scientist lair, we'll go up and poke around in one here in a little bit. But it would make a good place for a more evil-minded character. I can't really say that it would be a good place for a peaceful character, but if you're, you know, if you fancy yourself as an evil character, it's a great place. Also, this is really cool because this dungeon right here, it actually is accessed either through Zul'Drak or through Grizzly Hills. I think it's the only double-ended dungeon that I've ever seen, and I think it's kind of cool. Up here we have the Rageclaw Furball Den, And as you see, it's on fire. You've got a long quest chain where you have to put out the fires, you have to free some of these Rageclaw, and unfortunately you also have to go and put an end to the Rageclaw chieftain's pet. This guy out here in the middle of Rageclaw Lake, he was the chieftain's pet, but he went just a little bit crazy when the trolls invaded, and now he's just rampaging and killing everything. You have to take him out and bring his flipper back to his owner as proof that he will no longer be menacing the lake. I always find that one kind of sad. But yeah, you can see we've got Furbolg everywhere, we've got Crusaders everywhere, and that is because this is where we are in Light's Breach, where you get the quest to go and take care of the Rageclaw Den. You know, and it's kind of sad. This is one of the zones. There are a few zones where there's just no good houses, and this is one of them. There's a lot of really interesting places in this zone, but no good houses, and that always makes me a little bit sad. Speaking of houses, and I'm pretty sure that it's probably not going to happen, but I was watching Taliesin and Evitel this morning, and Taliesin's grand idea is that possibly in the next patch, maybe we'll get apartments in either Gilneas when we reclaim it, or maybe in Amirdrasil. That would be really cool. Not going to hold my breath, and I'm not going to huff too much hopium for it, but it would be really cool. In the meantime, if you have an evil character, Zeramis here is completely empty. There's not an enemy to be seen, and it's a really cool spot. Or if you have a guild that maybe is a little more nefarious, this is a really good place to hang out and do all your nefarious deeds. As I said before, I cannot really see any, like, Draenei who aren't warlocks hanging out here, or any maybe very holy paladins in this place, but I could see some warlocks and rogues hanging out in here. Alright, moving on as we do. There is another one of the reliquaries that's floating up, but it's definitely full of enemies. We'll pop into it later. So, most of Zul'Drak is completely overrun with either Scourge or Drakai trolls. I mean, it's kind of 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, and the spots that don't have either of those have Nerubians just popping around. So this is not the most peaceful of zones, but then again, how many zones in World of Warcraft are actually peaceful? But if you haven't done it before, the Argent Stand quests are actually kind of... they're frustrating but fun. I like the quests where you chuck parachutes at people so that they can survive the fall as they fall back down to earth from being thrown by these creatures that are attacking them. It always makes me laugh. I also did not know until I was looking up stuff for this episode that pretty much all of Zul'Drak is just actually a city. It was a giant temple city of the Drakai trolls. And I'm probably saying the tribe name wrong, and I do apologize. But yeah, I did not actually know that. And kind of a neat fact. Also, there is a very cute water elemental pet, if you're a pet collector, that you can, I think, only get here. So if you're a pet collector and you're looking for that, this is the spot to get it. I also would love to have seen this back before the trolls went a little bit crazy, because all of these things that were flying over were aqueducts from this giant, beautiful city. So now we're going to fly up into the Reliquary of Pain, which is definitely not an unoccupied one. Although if you're at max level, it's not actually a big deal. Also, if you hear a weird scratching in the background and meowing, that is my absolutely insane cat who likes to go into crazy cat mode whenever I sit down to record anything. I think it's just his way of getting onto the internet. But yeah, here in the Reliquary of Pain, Voltaris, you definitely have quests and all of that. I'm not sure why the other one is empty, and I wasn't able to actually find any information about why that one is empty, but like I said, it gets my brain going as, boy, that's a good hideout for a more nefarious, I almost said sim, a more nefarious guild or player. Kind of a cool place. Now over here we just have some of the more peaceful trolls who are fighting the Scourge. Actually, they're not peaceful. None of these trolls are peaceful. Don't listen to me. There's no peace here. So now we're going to go and check out all of the Loa that the Drakai sacrificed or are in the process of sacrificing to try to stop the Scourge. Not that it seems to have actually worked. And the first one is Sestrus. This is actually the prophet of Sestrus who you have to fight. He already sacrificed his Loa, the Loa Sestrus, who we're going to go look at, but he's kind of intimidating. He has turned into just a giant cobra with arms, and I would not want to meet him on a dark night. Although the actual Loa itself looks like it was probably really beautiful. Like the colors of it, it kind of reminds me of the cobras in Sholazar Basin, only on a much grander scale. So that was Sestrus. His Sestrus's prophet is now going a little mad, and he's going to destroy everyone. Argent Crusade, his own people, and the Scourge as well. You know, he's an equal opportunity destroyer. Before I forget, right over here we have the Amphitheater of Pain. What the actual Drakai troll used it for before it was taken over by a very familiar face over here of Gundrak, the fight promoter, who, if you remember him from Outlands, he was in the Grand, also having you fight in a ring. In fact, I think he has shown up in almost every expansion that I can think of. I don't know if he's in Dragonflight, though. Let me know if he is. And I doubt he was in the Shadowlands, but he's here. You can actually get an achievement for each of the pit fights, and I think there's a meta achievement for doing them all. I've done most of them, but definitely not all of them. I've done all the older ones, though. So that's where that is. It's also a very just cool structure. I actually really like troll architecture. They really did have a sense of grandeur and scale. Too bad they're almost always our enemies. Now, I'm not sure what's going on here in Draxorta, but it is one of the places that is definitely taken over by Nerubians. In fact, I think you have a bunch of quests that send you in here to unweb various and sundry crusaders. I was kind of hoping that there was a way down into the underworld through that tunnel, but unfortunately there wasn't. And I wasn't feeling all that generous, so I did not unweb anyone. I did find an interesting pile of bones and weaponry in that corner. Not sure what's up with that, but it looked cool. So, you know, aesthetics. It's all about aesthetics. And good questing. Speaking of good questing, the quests to help the Loa are one thing, and then you have a series of dailies that you can pick up for Argent Dawn reputation, and you just have to do them all once. I'm pretty sure they're all timed, and I am terrible at them, but it is one way to get rep with Argent Dawn, so something to keep in mind. Over here we have the downed Colramas, which is yet another one of those floating zuggernauts, only this one has been brought down and it's full of Nerubians. In fact, there's a giant Nerubian up on top who I think you have to take out in a quest line that I know I've done, but it's been a hot minute. But it's kind of cool. I really do appreciate just the vastness of World of Warcraft, and I think it's one of my favorite things to do, even when an expansion doesn't make me happy. Like, I still haven't finished Shadowlands. I just couldn't get into it. I felt like the story completely lost direction. But I never let my subscription lapse because I was doing my own thing. I was exploring, and I was still having fun in this game. And that's, I think, my favorite thing about World of Warcraft. And it's the thing that's kept me playing World of Warcraft pretty much nonstop. I think the longest break I have ever taken since I started playing this game back at the end of Burning Crusade, I think the longest break I've ever taken has been 6 months. Like, I might not log in daily, but I pretty much log in at least weekly. And that is the big giant Nerubian at the top of Colramas. So, now we're going to move on yet again. And we're moving on to my favorite Loa, and that is Haroa. And mostly, she is my favorite Loa because she is the mate of Loke. And if you haven't mained a Beast Mastery Hunter and spent far too long doing laps of Sholazar Basin hoping to come across Loke, then are you really a Beast Mastery Hunter? I've actually got him on 3 of my tunes, and he is probably my very favorite pet that I have ever gotten in World of Warcraft. So, I do love Haroa's quest chain. It ends with you freeing her soul, and unfortunately that means she moves on. But it's a nice quest chain. Also, this is Zimtorga, which is where a set of trolls that are neutral to Horde and Alliance. In fact, every place in Zul'Drak is neutral aligned. So whether you're Horde or Alliance, you're going to be doing the same quests here. But yeah, these are, I think, the Frost Trolls, or they could be Zandalari. I can't remember. But they are another little questing hub that you can do. Now here at Zimruk is, I think, where you can get from archaeology a little pet that looks just like those guardians that we just passed. Kind of cool. I love archaeology. I really wish that Dragonflight would have done something with it. And we are here at the altar of Runak. And that is the Arctic Bear Loa, who, they haven't killed him yet, but they are torturing his physical body. It's kind of sad. And again, you have to put him out of his misery. I'm not sure if this is the same. I don't think it is. But from the Shadowlands Afterlives, I'm not sure if this is the bear spirit that ends up being sacrificed. Let me know if it is, but I don't think it is. I think that's a different guardian bear spirit, but not sure. Good question. Alright, so that was the bear god. We have seen the leopard god. And now we're going to go see a couple more as we head towards yet another Loa's resting place. Actually, before we go there, let's just stop here at the Zul'Drak stronghold, where I love the enchanted Tiki warriors. They're very, very cool. Warlord Zul'Drak, and I don't remember his quest chain, but I do remember you have to get him out of that jail, and fighting the Tiki warriors was a pain in the butt. And over here we have the Altar of Mammoth, or we would have the Altar of Mammoth if the Loa had not discovered what was going on and blown itself up. So really the only remnants of the Loa are down in that crater down there, and that is just sort of animated droplets of the Loa's blood. Well, the actual mammoths, who were the followers of Mammoth, are trampling Mammoth's priests. Now this one, I'm not even going to try to say. It's Quetzalon, maybe? Well, I did try and say. And this is a really cool quest chain because you actually end up doing most of it in the spirit world, attempting to help Quetzalon. And you can go over here, and I'm pretty sure that the flying serpents here, the scions of Quetzalon, I'm pretty sure that they are tameable. And they're pretty cool because they are a white-winged serpent, and I just really like that model. I might have to come on one of my hunters and get one, see if it is tameable. You also have some bears and some very pretty frost leopards. So if you can't get Loke, you can at least get a white leopard, which I kind of like. We're going to fly over here and check out a little bit of the North Sea before we finish up here pretty soon. You can see Grizzly Hills off in the distance, which is going to be our next zone that we explore next week, and I can't wait. I love Grizzly Hills. I think everybody loves Grizzly Hills. It's got to be definitely my favorite zone. So, not of all time, but it's up there. Alright, so we just went by the Altar of Mammoth again. We'll take a minute to appreciate the rampaging mammoths. And then we're going to finish up as we head up here to Gundrak. Probably pronounced that wrong. We'll go past Zul'Heb and just kind of whatever it. But Gundrak. Anyway, it is a really cool dungeon. I like it because it's got outdoor parts along with the actual dungeon, and it's got the cool water pit that you can just jump down into. Kind of fun. Plus, who doesn't like fighting a giant T-Rex? What I am more familiar with this particular area from, though, is endless hours of farming a world drop pet that I have yet to get. It's, I think, one of the raptor pets, and I'm drawing a blank on it now, which, good job me, good job. I do my research, you can tell. But I do know that there is a pet here. It's a pretty rare world drop. And just like the black tabby that you can get out in the wetlands that I've never gotten, I've spent far too much time farming. Which is why I usually bring a leather worker out here, because at least that way I can skin these raptors for leather. But yeah, far too much time farming. But to make your farming or dungeon runs a little bit easier, at least there is a flight point out here. And that is where we are going to end up here at Dubra Jin. You have a little bit of questing that you can do here. It's not a big quest hub, but there is a couple of little breadcrumb quests that will eventually lead you into Gundrak. I think I just messed up. Anyway, life goes on. I mess up all the time. So, that's about it though. Thank you, as always, for listening and putting up with all of my mistakes. Next week, Grizzly Hills. But until then, thank you, as always, for listening. Leave me a thumbs up if you don't mind. It really does make me smile. And if you are not doing anything else, why not hit subscribe? Have a good one.